Hey, good evening all. We're back again and came close to missing the WEATHERCAST almost again because I'm on a very late schedule. I had to do orders and catch up on business stuff last night. But I think we're pretty clear tonight and we shouldn't have any problems for me switching my schedule back. So let's check out the weather. We've got an MCS moving through Oklahoma. Don't see too many of those in July, but they do occur, especially during these northwest flow events. And thanks to Richard McAllister, I did get a kind of a quick look at some of the products here, showing the velocity here, and you can see a little bit of rotation right there southwest of Alva. And the velocity shows a little bit of a couplet right there, and it really stands out on the storm relative velocity right here. So that's a little tornadic circulation that we see there on the radar. It was, as far as I know, that was pretty brief, and I'm not sure if any chasers actually caught that. But there's a larger look at the MCS moving southwestward, or southeastward, and you can see it fed by this southeasterly flow coming from the Gulf. So when we have a MCS moving southeast, the field that we should look at is the Theta E. And the Theta E does tend to be kind of a noisy field, so we have to kind of weed through all this and try to find the ridge. And I see that the 362s are probably in this area right here. And then as we get close to the line, we get contamination between the rain-cooled air and the fields there. So this is actually what's important here. There's the 362. The 366 is kind of in here. And then there's the 370. So that gives you an idea where the most favored cold air for that MCS is. Or most favored warm, moist air. Okay. And then superimposed on that, you can kind of see the wind field there. And that's the inflow into that area of storms. But not much going on elsewhere. Pretty quiet there in the southeast U.S. And I'll take a quick look up in the northeast U.S. We don't go up there too often, and they've got westerly flow. Looks like the trajectories are coming from Canada. So that's a pretty cool pattern. We've got high pressure moving in. And then taking a look at the Pacific Northwest. I don't think that field wants to come in, so okay. Yeah, it's a little bit late there. Looks like a little bit of a heat low there over the interior of Washington. Little 10-14 millibar low there. It's either a heat low or a baroclinic low, one of the two. But out ahead of it, this is definitely some sort of warm sector here. So probably very mild or warm conditions in Idaho. Okay, let's see. There's our SPC risk area showing an enhanced area out over Oklahoma, ahead of that MCS. And the big question for me is whether that MCS is going to continue southwestward overnight. And I think the best product for that is going to be the high-resolution rapid refresh model, so we'll check that out in just a little bit. Okay, 250 millibar analysis shows a trough over Colorado. That's helping us support that MCS. So this is an area of colder air, and we see destabilization close to this trough, long and out ahead of it. 700 millibar flow, we can outline the 10 Celsius line to get an idea of the capping. And then we follow that up with a 12 line. And then we do a 14 line. So we can see the capping does get stronger as we go westward, although elevation does tend to overcome those effects to a certain extent. So it looks like our MCS developed right around the 12 line, and not much extent eastward past the 13 and 14 there. And it looks like it's tracking southeast into slightly more uncapped air, just by a quick look at this chart here. Then the 850, this kind of gets into the inflow into the storm, and this is from this morning. But we do see southerly winds at 20 here and southwesterly at 20. So this is not an optimal pattern here for inflow into that storm. But we should go down to the 925 to check it out, and here we do see a similar picture. So presumably we've probably seen a bit of a response in the low-level field to that trough there. So I would expect to see the winds at 850 to be a little bit more backed. Okay, there's our potential temperature field, and do we see anything that looks like a front? Yeah, possibly in Washington here. You can see a little bit of a gradient there. And the gradients we have here are pretty normal. That's basically the front range right there. Then we have a gradient right here indicating possibly a warm front located right there. These gradients out here are due to the Great Lakes. These are kind of like contamination. And then we do see some sort of gradient over the southeast U.S., and that could be due to an outflow boundary of some kind. And I do see northerly winds there in northern Alabama right there. So evidently that's probably a good boundary for storms there in the Atlanta and northern Mississippi area. Can definitely see the MCS right there, the effects there. There's a bit of an outflow boundary there. And we'll see if we can check some of this out on satellite imagery. So let me get this set up here. Yeah, there's our storms coming out of the Panhandles area. Tail end, of course, being the stronger storms. But we did get a few cells that were locally severe here and here. So this is probably along the leading edge of that bow shape. And then a couple of other strong storms further out to the east. And this, of course, is where the Theta E ridge is. But if you're looking to find a good isolated storm, then naturally you're going to head to the tail end of the line. So that's usually the safer bet when you're out chasing. Let me see if I can find a loop that goes further back and is a little bit more zoomed out. This will give us kind of a broader view of the activity, and looks like a lot of storms across the Great Plains this evening. Plenty there in Iowa, Kansas City area, around Tulsa too, and out over West Texas, and even some upslope out in western Nebraska and northeast Colorado. Okay, let's see here. We were watching the tropics a little bit. We'd been watching a wave coming off the African coast. Let me see if I can move that out there without messing up the stream. Wow, there's a pretty good wave there moving through. I guess that's Nigeria. That's heading westward, so that'll come into the forecast picture pretty soon. That's even got a pretty good outflow boundary. That's very impressive. See that right there? That would be pretty interesting to be chasing out there and seeing some of these storms developing. Of course, you've got haze problems as you go further south, but there's the tail end of that. Okay, further out to the west, we had one wave coming offshore, and I think it may be this one here. It's either that one or this one. I would have to check, but I did get a note from Ryan there mentioning a strong wave there in the Atlantic. Thinks it might be Tropical Depression 4 if it develops. And he mentioned that there's very strong upper-level shear over the Atlantic, and he would expect this to dissipate, kind of like what happened to Tropical Storm Brett. So I'm not too sure we're going to get a hurricane or anything like that out of that as it moves west. But, of course, we'll continue to watch that. And speaking of Ryan, I did get a waterspout picture here. Let me see if I can pull that up. Yeah, this was taken by Ryan on, I think, yesterday around Fort Lauderdale, showing a couple of waterspouts there offshore. I think this is looking east. And let me see, let me check the information I have here. Yeah, 2 miles offshore. And he said the heat index was 101 degrees there, and there were some boats in the area. And there was a quick look at the cloud there, and looks like somebody on a jet ski. So that would be one way to chase them, and I can see a boat pretty close off there. So that would be fun, go out there and chase waterspouts on a high-speed boat. And I did get some other pictures from somebody else, but you can see them there, but I didn't get any information. This came from like area code 434, and I always do need to receive a name and permission to use them, plus some information. Otherwise, it gets risky for me to put these on the air because I don't know where they came from. So please send that when you do send photos. Okay, guys, also I have a viewer map. This is new. I've decided to start working on this, and let me see if I can zoom this out just a little bit. Yeah, this shows the location of some of our viewers, at least the ones I have on file here. So I can see Ron Chalfant there in Southern California, and Ancient Astronaut, and Alexei there in Central Texas, and all the way eastward to Mark there in New Hampshire. So if you would like to be on this map, please mention your location in chat, and I'll pick it up later. Or you can send an email. And even got Ahmed down there in Saudi Arabia. So I want to try to build this up and see if I can get everybody on here. Okay, let's see. What else do I got? Let me take a look at the chat. Let me go over to that real quick. Okay, Ron says, "Wake up, Tim." Yeah, I appreciate that. It was actually a phone call that woke me up about 7:30, so this was really a close one. Fun with Tech is here. Michael Burrell, Greenville Weather. Ryan and Burl H, Eddie W. Ancient Astronauts got 93 there in Canyon Lake. Canyon Lake, is that... I keep thinking that's like around Lake Buchanan or Lake Travis. Is that correct, where that is? Kevin McKinney is here, and Ryan says, let's make this webcast a good one. Invited a few folks over in to boost viewership, and I do appreciate that. Hard to drag families down into weather discussion-related stuff on vacation time. Lloyd McCarter says, good evening. Interesting storm over his area. Stalled out over the Washita National Forest for about 3 hours. Shred Days, that looks like a name I haven't seen in a while. Jumping Flash, Ryan says, pilots and clients of his in Oklahoma earlier today said storms blew up fast about 3 p.m. Large hail, severe storms west of Omaha. Lloyd says the delay in his storms seemed to reduce the energy in the storms only slightly and produced some interesting effects. A light, short-duration flash and brush lightning. What characterizes a weak cold front? A weak cold front is basically a weak thermal gradient which means a very low temperature change over a certain distance. Ryan mentioning a storm there over Omaha. Big crosswinds there in Omaha. Flights delayed 2 hours. Carl Berghoff is here. Lloyd coming in on snow and ice, and a strong crosswind was fun. Eric Hall, clear down Spring Hill, some storms. Pensacola had tornado watch earlier today. Michael Burrell says he's in Stockbridge. I'll try to get that added to the map. Wollongong, Australia, from Mick there. Greenville's in Columbia, South Carolina. And Andrew checking in. So, yeah. Again, if you want to be on this map, just leave a chat message or just send that in email. That'll be fine. Okay, let's try to get our products up and running here, and we'll take a look at the thermal conditions across the U.S., and this is where we look for fronts. We're looking here at thickness in red, and in the black colors we have isobars, so that'll be pressure. So let me get this going here. 18Z. There we go. Okay, so this will correspond to the current time, and the only place I can really see a strong thermal gradient is over Alberta and the northwest U.S. So I'm going to bring a front through that area right there. Saskatchewan down to Montana, down to Oregon. And it looks like a little bit of a warm front maybe in the Dakotas, and we did find a boundary out in that area. Other than that, it does look like maybe we have an old stalled front across Georgia right there, a little bit of troughing. So maybe that's a weak cold front that has stalled out there in the Atlanta area. Fortunately, I guess it hasn't affected flights there in Atlanta yet, as far as I know. And as far as Texas, we're under deep tropical flow here, and we can verify that with the soundings. And we'll just take a couple look at some soundings. I'll take a look at Ryan's place because I know he's brought some family members on, so we'll take a look at some data out there real quick. And this is the conditions in the vertical with height. So let me see if I can get that going here. So this is going to be from Miami. And this is showing us a very tropical air mass, a little bit dry aloft though. So you can see that there. And the winds are out of the easterly. This is a deep tropical flow coming from the east. So there's south of the upper level ridge. And this is kind of what we expect this year. And then better moisture as we get down to the surface. 72 degree dew points, keeping things very warm there. I'm looking at the bottom. Okay, yeah, this is trying to get this sorted out because I saw one diagram here show 7th of July. Okay, there we go. Back on track. Okay, Fort Worth showing a very steep lapse rate. So there's a potential there for thunderstorms. Pretty good moisture in the low levels. And we've got more of a westerly flow. So that's the big difference between Florida and Texas. We've got a subtropical ridge in between. We'll go on up to Norman, and this is ahead of that MCS, and we see the very deep moisture all the way up to about 8,000 feet right there. And can we get storms out of that? We prefer to use the bottom 100, 150 millibars like that. We average that out, go up the mixing ratio line, and then down the dry adiabat like that. That kind of gives us our convective temperature, and we see the convective temperature is about 93. So we really have to reach 93 degrees to clear the cap. Fortunately, as you go westward, you need less heat to get the convection to clear the cap. And I'm sure that they had 90 degrees out there, so no wonder we had that MCS. So things got going. And you can see there's not much of a cap there at 700 millibars. So very little capping in there, just a little bit there at 850, and that's all that we had there. So very good condition there for thunderstorms. And then I'll see if I can pick up Dodge City here. Dodge City, I think, was contaminated this morning. You can see the northeast winds there. So you got to be on a lookout for that and make sure that the wind fields and the low-level conditions correspond to what you're expecting for that station. And I expected them to be in southeasterly flow ahead of that area of storms coming out of Colorado last night, because this is 12Z. And instead we had some contamination there. Okay, let's see. Let's move on out ahead to the forecast, and we'll take a look at the high-resolution rapid refresh. Storms have moved into Oklahoma, so I'm going to recenter that on the south-central U.S. And this will give us an idea of what the most high-resolution model is forecasting for this area. So there it is, picking up the MCS pretty well. They're in northwest Oklahoma in the panhandles, and we've got that moving southeast overnight. Nocturnal MCS, nighttime is a very good time for the MCSs because they're fed by an increasing nocturnal low-level jet. And way back, I think back in May, I talked a little bit about the tendency of the low-level jet to get going overnight. You take away friction, and that helps the low-level jet accelerate. And that's what happens at night, and so we get a very good MCS going. And then by 8 to 9Z, it starts falling apart. And it's probably just moving out of the better moisture supply. So there it is, moving from about Tyler to Texarkana about 7 in the morning, all the way up to Bentonville, which is, of course, the headquarters for Walmart there. And the tail end just grazing Tyler at about 10 in the morning right there. And you can see what looks like a little mesoscale convective vortex. You see that right there? So that's going to probably show up on radar and satellite tomorrow morning. Little mesoscale convective vortex, and even we get some new development in there as surface heating commences in northwest Oklahoma. But as far as Texas for tomorrow, we're just under more of this southerly flow. But we've got to keep in mind that this storm has laid down a boundary from about Tyler all the way up to Oklahoma. And it looks like maybe it might be something like that right there. So if conditions are favorable for thunderstorms tomorrow, we're going to be looking for development along that boundary. So even though you may not be in Texas or Oklahoma, this is just information that will be helpful for your own forecast. If you see something like this happening, like an MCS moving through Georgia to the Carolinas, you'll be looking for this boundary the next day. Weather is the same wherever you go. The physics of the atmosphere does not change, so you're just applying these principles where you're at. And we'll take a quick look in the southeast. You know, why not? We don't often go down there. And this is showing a little bit of the so-called air mass activity over Florida. And then up north we have that little boundary that's kind of east-west through here, helping these storms develop. And that's not going to show up very well on the high-resolution rapid refresh, because this is a very small-scale boundary. We can just barely pick it up with the data we have available. And we see a little bit of storm organization overnight over northern Alabama, but we don't have a good flow of moisture from the south like we do over Texas. There's not a low-level jet feeding this stuff. You can see there's a very weak pressure gradient out to the south. So these are going to shut down pretty quickly overnight. And by 10, 11 Z, which is about 6 in the morning, just a few thunderstorms over Alabama where the deeper moisture is. And then you can see the other MCS start coming out of Arkansas there. Okay, let's see here. I want to look at precipitable water. I'm going to have to load that chart up. Okay, so precipitable water coming in. This is a very important chart for this time of year because this tells us where the deeper tropical air is. This is also correlated very strongly with flash flood potential. And if we have a very uncapped air mass, this is where we're going to see the most rain. Okay, so there we go. We got that loaded up. Let me check the chat real quick there. Alexi is in finals week. Ryan, Naples, Miami, Orlando, very hot, heat index 102. Hiker, Arizona, welcome to the webcast. Hello from Tucson. They got wildfires there. Last measurable rain was March 28th. Good grief. So I guess we're probably at least 4 to 6 weeks away from the monsoon rains. That usually comes in around August. Large out-of-control fire burning northeast of Tucson in the Catalina Mountains. Yeah, I used to live in Tucson back in the mid-'80s, and we used to go up to Mount Lemmon all the time. It's a very beautiful area. Alexi says, let's get those likes and subscriptions up, and I appreciate that. The mountain ranges he hikes on are all on fire. Good grief. "2013 in Arizona was a bad year, according to Ryan there. Hoping to get good monsoon storms going, but all they do at this point is kick up the wind. Too dry at the surface." So yeah, we do need a very wet weather pattern for that area. And as we can see right now, precipitable water is not too bad right now. It looks like about an inch over Tucson, but I guess we just don't have a good trigger for that to get organized storms out of that. Jumping Flash, best wishes during finals week. Passed differential equations a couple days ago. Excellent. That's definitely very useful in meteorology. Hiker says it's the best time of the year. We live for it here. This year especially, it seems to be taking its sweet time this year. Talking about the monsoons there. Okay. So we got the precipitable water up, and let me see. A couple notes I also had. I want to thank Bill Hark. He's been kind of a anonymous contributor in a way, but he really didn't have any problem mentioning his donation, and he helped a lot there. Sent in a rather large donations, which is definitely very helpful, and I got that last week, and I very much appreciate that. And also, if anybody can donate over Patreon, let me put up that card right there. This is very appreciated. If you can send in a few bucks here to keep the webcast going, that would be appreciated, because the webcast is definitely a lot of work, and that kind of keeps me from just focusing on the books and software. So as long as we've got financial support, I'll keep this going. Let's see here. I also want to thank Eddie W. He sent in a European data link, and I was not really aware of this, but this is on George Couchman's weather.us site. Let me go over to that real quick. So thanks, Eddie W., for this. I wasn't really aware of this source. We'll take a look at this real quick. They've got a few more fields for the European model, the ECMWF, that we normally don't have. And let's see. Yeah, there's George Couchman. He's a great guy there. I talk to him occasionally, and I've done some contract work for him. Let's see. Yeah, see here, model charts. We can I think we can just pick the continental U.S. and then we can select it from there. Okay, so it's a little bit of a different presentation, but the weather model, we can select that here, and you can see we have ECMWF. And I'm just going to zoom in on Texas real quick, so let me do that real quick. Since we have that big MCS coming south. Okay, and then under parameter, you can see we've got a few fields that we normally are not used to with the European model. The Europeans, they tend to withhold a lot of their data. They're very stingy about it, and we can only get a few key fields. Normally, it's going to be like thickness, height, 500 millibar heights, and pressure. But we've got 5,000 feet temperature. A very important one we have is this dew point. That's really outstanding right there. So we can track the dry line and compare that to the GFS and the NAM. There's the usual mean sea level pressure, but we've also got pressure change. That can be helpful for tracking upper level systems. Okay, there's the usual 500 millibar heights, not too surprising there. Then we've got wind gusts. That's useful right there. We've got cloud cover. We have a few precip fields and CAPE. Okay, so this is a model site that we're definitely going to want to look at here as we get back into storm season. But let me take a look at dew point here, and we'll see what the fields are looking like out over Texas. Let's see, I can't put Oklahoma and the time on the same page, but this is going to be 10 o'clock tonight. And we can see the 70s dew points there out over Oklahoma. Then I advance this forward to 7 a.m. So we're looking at the ECMWF, the European model. There's 7 a.m. right there. And let me bring this up to 4 p.m. tomorrow. And this is interesting. We can see what looks like very high dew points over southern Oklahoma, but weaker conditions out over the West Texas area. Almost kind of like a little bit of a dry line. This is probably actually outflow there. I think that's probably the old outflow boundary we were talking about. So this area here primed for thunderstorms if we get convection going. Then we've got some sort of weakness in the field right there. I think there's probably some sort of boundary right in that area right there. So we'll check that out on the other charts. So that brings us to dew point, and this will give us our segue into the forecast over the next 5 to 10 days. So let's check out the conditions for tomorrow night. Okay, tomorrow night, Tuesday. Definitely looks like some sort of boundary in the Red River area. You see the significant difference in the wind field north and south of that line there. So looks like good potential in the Red River area for thunderstorms. And then the large-scale picture has a southerly flow across the Great Plains and the Mississippi River Valley. So we're bringing up tropical air from the south. Then for Wednesday, so we're looking at the wind field here, and it looks like a rather persistent boundary across the Red River area again. So it looks like above average potential for thunderstorms between North Texas and Oklahoma here. In fact, that boundary kind of looks like it goes all the way to Alabama, something like that. But you can see how weak the dew points are around Tucson, where they're having those fires there. Those are going to be dew points in the 30s and 20s. Okay, going ahead to Thursday. Still looks like kind of a chaotic wind field across Oklahoma. See how much that contrasts with the southeasterly flow coming on shore here. That's the tropical flow coming into Texas, and it gets disrupted. So, looks like some potential for some convection along the Red River again for Thursday. Looks like a new front coming south, driven by this high-pressure area here. So that's going to enter the picture here. Then by Friday, looks like the leading edge of that front coming into Arkansas, northern Oklahoma, and eastern Colorado. And I'm looking at the wind field in Texas, and I see a little bit of disruption, and that could be the sea breeze, or it could just be friction, because the flow onshore is actually pretty light. So it's hard to tell. Could be convective boundaries in there, or it could just be nothing. I'm not sure which, but definitely we can pick out the front there coming southward. Then for Saturday, yeah, now we can definitely see some sort of boundary in the Red River area again. Looks like a wet pattern there for the North Texas, Oklahoma area. Going ahead into Sunday, still looks like there may be some sort of boundary, maybe in North Texas somewhere, another boundary up in Nebraska. So you can see what we're doing is we're looking for irregularities in the wind field. Because boundaries, when we're talking about thunderstorms and convective weather, those are extremely important. Wherever you have moisture and a good boundary, you've got pretty much all the prerequisites for thunderstorms, as long as you're not strongly capped. Looks like toward the weekend there, some of the moisture has also made it up in Alberta. Let's check that out. Check out the moisture field up there in Alberta. You can see a little... Let's see, where does that come in? Yeah, there it is, springing up right there. This is around Friday. And it looks like they've got a little bit of a upslope pattern going on in that area. Yeah, and right up there you can see 70s dew points up there around Calgary and Edmonton. So that's going to be, for them, a very good thunderstorm pattern. In Alberta, they do get tornadoes up in that area occasionally. There was the big Edmonton tornado back in '87. I would definitely recommend checking that out on YouTube. There's a few videos of that tornado. And looks like they get the next front coming southward. So it looks like around Monday, I think either around Sunday or Monday, probably a good pattern for thunderstorms in that area. So back to the back to the U.S. itself. Let's see here. Let's check out the rest of next week here real quick. You can see a little bit of a wave coming up from east of Florida. We were looking at some sort of tropical system coming onto Florida next week, but I don't know if that's reflected in the data anymore, but let's see what happens. Nope, just a little weak disturbance or easterly wave right there. And then Texas pretty much under very homogeneous southeasterly flow. You can see that this it shows a little bit less in the way of boundaries. So this is more typical of what we have in a quiet weather pattern. So you see how much that differs from what we had earlier. High pressure over the Great Lakes right there, so kind of a mild pattern there for the northeast U.S. and the Ohio Valley middle of next week. And then quiet just about everywhere towards the end of next week, 14th and 15th. I can see another boundary coming south. So probably more thunderstorms around the middle of July, and yeah, that boundary makes it all the way into Texas. That's an unseasonably strong cold front right there. So anyway, high pressure associated with that front moving through the Great Lakes around the 17th there, and then we get back under southerly flow. Just a brief period of quiet weather, dry weather over Texas around the 17th and 18th, then the moisture back on its way northward. Okay, then about that tropical system, let me pull up the Caribbean sector. Or I guess we'll do the West Atlantic and see if we can find that little wave coming off of Africa. Let's see, where is it? I don't see it at all. Yeah, here comes something. This is around the 7th. And Ryan has told us that the environment in that area is not particularly good because of strong upper level shear. So this is around the 8th. This is kind of far north, so this may recurve pretty quickly. So there goes that system towards the 10th. And then, yeah, you can see that that dissipates towards the 11th. And then we've just got kind of an easterly wave moving towards the Florida coast. And looks like that gets picked up by the westerlies and kind of moves northward towards the Carolina coast around the 14th or 15th. But, you know, a lot could change between now and then. And it looks like we've also got something going on here in Puerto Rico. You can see something moving through the flow right there. This could make it up into the southeast U.S. Some sort of wave. There it goes around the 17th. So that could have some impact there on Florida and maybe even Texas and the Gulf Coast later on. But that's a long ways off. Okay, let's see. I think that's probably about all I got for now, and let me just take a quick look. Yeah, Bill Hark, Severe Studios there. Yeah, definitely recommend checking out his site. He chases every spring, and he gets some good footage there. The European models are tough to find without paying, that's true. Of course, the Weather Service gets unlimited access to that data, but not for us. We're stuck with the scraps. Hiker says first storms usually arrive in Tucson first week of July or so. We regularly enjoy our 4th of July fireworks with a few background lightning strikes. Tim said he should be adding a lot more on it soon. Okay. A little discussion there about the weather.us site. Ryan says conditions are not favorable for the next few weeks. Dead on arrival. Yeah, mostly tropical wave disturbances for now. So, yeah. I was going to bring in some new weather modules and talk about, like, what I was going to do is, like, maybe talk about observational topics, like on Monday, dynamics on Tuesday, satellite on Wednesday, and do something like that. So I'm going to gradually try to get that worked into the forecast. The problem is I start talking about, the current conditions, and the next thing we know, we're 45 minutes in. So this is something I'm going to have to work on, but I'll gradually get that added to the weathercast, and we'll start talking about some actual fundamentals. So just be patient there, and we'll try to get that worked in this week. Okay, so I think that's about all I got for today. I appreciate you all watching the webcast. And please like and subscribe and comment. And I think that'll do it for me. I appreciate y'all watching, and we'll see you tomorrow.